The body affects the soul, mind, will, and emotions, affects the spirit, affects the soul, affects the body.
Hello and welcome to the Restore Healthcare Project. I'm Dr. Jennifer Kang. Just want to remind you to hit that like, subscribe, and follow button to keep us through the airwaves and to let people find us. I'm here today again with Dr. Jonathon Clark, a family medicine physician practicing in Springfield, Missouri, where he actually also serves in a church at Abundant Life Church. So happy to have you with us again today, John.
Thanks for having me. This is such a privilege and a pleasure and an honor. Thank you.
Now, today I actually brought with me a copy of your book, which I love, and I was so happy to get the chance to endorse your book as well. This is titled Holy and Holistic Health Pearls for the Whole Person. And it's just chock full of very witty wisdom pearls, and I've enjoyed it very much. So I encourage our listeners to get a copy. What was kind of behind in driving you to write this book, John?
Well, first of all, thank you for calling that witty and clever. It's my personality coming out, and some people enjoy that and some do not. But thank you for the kind words, and thank you for endorsing the book. That was so kind. I probably, I don't know, 25 years in, 25 years into practice, I just keep seeing similar patterns of the God world and the natural world coming together.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I don't know, a few years before, when you start hanging around spirit-filled churches and prophetic people and prophetic churches, you start getting prophetic words. And I started getting these prophetic words over and over from different places. It's time to write. It's time to start writing books. And I think the first one I got was actually in Redding, California. I think it was one of the Mental Healing conferences. And so I thought, you know what? Okay, we can do that. My first little booklet was actually an intermittent fasting booklet of my experiences with intermittent fasting. But then it seemed like, we probably need a little more of a overall holistic health book if we're going to do this. And so it was really, and I suppose there was some obedience mixed in, prophetic words, obedience, and basically this is my life. And there are some different observations that I've never seen others say or seen, that just this is what I've seen. This is so let's throw it out there and see what between the prophetic words and the obedience, and let's just see what happens with it.
Well, I think they were right on because you're so uniquely positioned to write this book, and you're bringing a perspective of a very experienced primary care physician who has cared for people with good medicine for many years. You've also cared for people from a spiritual, pastoral perspective for many years, and you have learned over the years the whole aspects of health that maybe some of the rest of us just focused on academic medicine haven't had words for. So I think that it's so timely, and you're really well positioned to bring your insights. One of the things you do in the beginning of the book is you really start to define some of these things, or I would say redefine some of these words and ideas that we use, one of them being health. So what is within your context and your understanding of what good health is? How do you redefine that?
I went back over that this morning to kind of get that back in my head, how I had written that. Really good health, and I would say good health, and I could really nerd out into some theological terms here, and maybe I will before we're done. But good health, in my opinion, what I've seen, what I want to experience, and what I think people want to experience is living with continuous energy and vitality. They want to feel good. Free of disease and dysfunction. Those two things usually go together. And having the maximum of well-being, which brings in spirit, soul, body, emotions, mind, mental, because you don't really have great well-being if you just have great health, but you don't have good mental health or emotional health. So the maximum of well-being, and then hopefully for many years to come, bring in longevity. If we're doing this right, uh, barring the Lord having another plan, hopefully we could live in this good state of energy and vitality, free of problems, maximizing well-being for many, many years
Mm,
into old age until you go. Yeah.
yeah. And you identify the whole aspect of a person, and we've talked about this on this podcast before as well. Just how important even modern medicine is has been acknowledging the importance of mental health, emotional health, and now even spiritual health, and that they're an integrated aspect of a person's being, not necessarily divisible. And so certainly dysfunction or disease in any aspect of that is going to cross over and cause dysfunction throughout your whole being. You specifically have some things to say about soul, and I think that was really good insight. Can you talk a little bit about how you explain soul and the interplay between body, soul, and spirit?
When I came back to the Lord after my 2 years of horrible being away from the Lord, um, our pastor at our church used to say this all the time: man is a spirit, he has a soul, and he lives in a body. And I'm just a young, late teen, early adult, but I keep hearing him say that. And then he'd preach, then he'd go into theological issues. And so when I got into healthcare and learning science and anatomy and all, that stayed with me. And then I became a doctor, and I know what I experienced myself and how God had healed me in a whole way, and He did it seemingly pretty easily in a way that I thought was going to take a long time to get wholeness back to this guy right here after I had messed it up so bad. And so um, the spirit, soul, and body. So soul, a lot of times, is defined as mind, will, and emotions. That was just kind of the Sunday school, Bible school answer, and I think there's a lot of truth in that. That the invisible part of a human, um, and if you pull from the scriptures are pretty clear that the invisible created the visible. The invisible part of God and His Spirit created the visible. He spoke it into being. So but any person, believer or non-believer, I think would say there's this invisible part of us, this essence of us that you can't put in a test tube. You can't do a lab test on it, but it's as real or more real than the things that we can test and examine and quantify. And I had a good friend early on in my education, and he had a lot of issues with depression and anxiety and mental health, and he was taking medications. And I remember one day I probably was getting a little self-righteous or whatever, and he said, "Listen," he said, "you can't separate these three out. The body affects the soul, mind, will, and emotions, affects the spirit, affects the soul, affects the body." And even though from a biblical perspective, there is a bit of a hierarchy that the spirit really is the essence of who we are. The way I see it is God gave us a physical body on this earth made of molecules and elements. Um, and so where the spirit intersects with the natural, we have a soul. There's a soul
Yes.
interface there. And there it's designed that way. The first three chapters of Genesis are so enlightening, and they set the stage for everything else in the universe that ever will happen, whether it's theological or healthcare or relationships or anything else. So because according to the word and what I've seen, and I believe this to be true, I've seen this a lot. If a person has a healthy spirit and soul life, um, well, let me say this in reverse. What I often see is folks, especially young folks, and they're doing everything right. They're exercising properly. They're eating healthy. They're eating clean. They're doing everything that's highly recommended by the people, and yet they're still sick. Now that there's no formula here, but I'm going to say a
Right.
disclaimer before I say
Yeah.
anything else. In this realm, 1 + 1 does not always equal 2, but there's patterns. There's patterns that I've seen over and over again. And a young person that would come in and they've lived the perfect physical life. They're the perfect specimen, and they have diabetes or they have leukemia, and they look at me and they're mad, and they'll say, "How did this happen?" And I'll say, "I don't know. You did everything as you were instructed by all healthcare people, and yet you still have these problems." So, um, and simultaneously, I see many people who live a very healthy spirit and soul life, but say spirit life, and they have a lot of health issues. And so it's hard to live in that wholeness, WHOLE, the wholeness, the completeness that is health, if you're neglecting any of those three parts of a human. We are spirit, we are soul, we are body. If I could take 30 to 60 seconds from the Christian standpoint, in Eden, when man fell, the spirit of man died. God said, if you do this, you're going to die. He did it, she did it, and they didn't die. They kept living, but something died.
Yes.
Something died in them, and what died in them was the spirit connection to the loving creator. And unfortunately, humans were never supposed to live in a dead spirit or deformed spirit state. So the soul had to ascend to the throne of running the show, so to speak.
Yeah.
It was never designed to. It was never supposed to be that. So even though it can still function, and do pretty well, it's always going to be like it's something's out of alignment. Something's not quite right here, and the results often are it doesn't the good that a soul can do without the spirit usually doesn't last. It's usually
Mm,
temporary. It's up,
mm.
it's down. It's trying to do the best it can. I'm calling it an it. I shouldn't call it an it. The soul's trying to do the best it can, but it's missing the vital part that was always supposed to make it kick on all cylinders,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
it's
good
not
insight.
kicking on all cylinders.
And we see the toll that this takes on a person's physical health. We have lots of data now demonstrating mental and emotional health impacts on physical health that when unattended and uncared for result in physical disease that we have a hard time quantifying. We call this sometimes functional illness or illness that's a manifestation of underlying psychological, emotional distress. The soul, without the strength of the spirit leading it and connected as designed to the creator, it wears down. I think that's what I hear you saying. It can't bear the burden of that role because the soul is the part of us that's meant to interface between both. And eventually that breakdown will then manifest in physical unwellness as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know much about cars, but I understand if your pistons aren't running right, if you've lost a piston or whatever, it's just a matter of time. It's you're not gonna get the longevity out of the engine, that you were supposed to, and that may be a silly, example because I don't know anything about cars, but it seems like it might fit. It
Yes,
seems like that
yes.
might fit there.
Well, and you used a word too that you use a lot in this book, and I think this is so fantastic because holistic, spelled HOLISTIC, is a very trending word in healthcare and in wellness circles currently. Holistic meaning whatever the trend says it means, but you distinguish that from holistic with WH. Can you speak a little bit more about that and what the difference is to you? How do you see holistic and holistic health? Hey, healthcare heroes, have you been impacted by this podcast? I've been working on making this content freely available to all of you through my nonprofit, and I would love for you to be able to help me in this effort. You can make a tax-deductible donation at our website, restorehealthcareproject.org. Thank you for helping me champion hope.
Holistic, Holistic. If you'd asked me 30 years ago, and I'm in Springfield, Missouri, I'm in a very, very, very conservative area of the country. If you'd asked me when I bought my practice, what's going to disrupt healthcare the most in the next 30 years, I would have tried to come up with some brilliant talking about payer systems and malpractice and technology. And I would have been partly right, but I would have been so wrong because now, 30 years later, the greatest disruptor that I have seen in healthcare, in conventional healthcare, is the holistic movement. And because often, Dr. Kang, the new things and the trends start on the West Coast, the East Coast, the South, and the North. And after 20 or 30 years, they eventually trickle into Springfield. And this movement took Springfield by storm.
Mm.
And I'm okay with that. If that works, if herbs and vitamins and supplements, whatever the trend is now, if that works for you, I'm all for it. But oftentimes, the folks that I talk to, holistic means diet and exercise and the perfection of natural physical interventions in
Yeah.
lifestyle. Yay. I love that.
Right.
Yay, yay, yay. And now a lot of times it's including the mental health. Great. That's wonderful. Um, they don't always, my opinion, they don't always hit the best marks with the mental health focus, but nevertheless, they're acknowledging it. And I'm seeing the same thing you're seeing in the family practice literature. It's actually a good thing to take a spiritual history to acknowledge the religious spiritual side of a person, and that's nice. That's a nice breath of fresh air. Um, but I've lost my track just a little bit. I don't know if I'm answering the
But
question anymore.
holistic with a WH is distinguished from that.
Yeah, and I looked up these terms this morning. Holistic, holos, the Greek word holos, from which holistic comes, is talks about wholeness, WHOLE, and that's not just Bible. That's just pure Greek language. Um, which is also interestingly tied into the religious word holy, Holy. They're the same root word, holy and the holistic movement. And they both point to wholeness, WHOLENESS, um, which my opinion, what I've seen, not just my theological training or beliefs, I've seen this. I have seen folks not living in great states of health because they're neglecting one or more aspects of their triune spirit, soul, body being. So, if we're going to talk about real holistic health, not because we have a book to write or we have to be right, but because we want to help people. You're here to see me, and you're going to pay me money because you want to be better. You want to feel better. You want to be in better state of health. Then let's not succumb to trends. Let's talk about wholeness. Let's talk about what wholeness is. If you want to, if you don't want to, that's fine. I'll help as much as I can. But that's where the prayer and that's where bringing in the Holy Spirit and the Lord helps. And the other thing is if they really jump here in my office and it's more going to be spirit or soul type issues that they want to talk about, I'll say, listen, if you come in here, I have to be a doctor. I have to be a physician here. There are legal issues here if you're coming to see me as a physician. But if you want to go have coffee next week or whatever, I don't have to be a doctor there. I can be a friend. I can be a person. I can, if you want to come to me as more in a pastoral role, that's fine too. Um, because I want you to get better, and coming to me in a healthcare office may not be what it is where you're going to really get the healing and the wholeness that you need. You may already have that down. You may have that down. Uh, so I think I'm kind of rambling now.
Well, and you mentioned holiness too, and I think, um, it's so interesting that there's language roots that give us clues about what this means, but what do you think holiness has to do with health?
It's a great question. Um, and holy, the word holy or holiness is so religious. It's one of those religious terms, and it's easy just to kind of roll your eyes and say, I don't know what that means. Whatever. Yeah, I can't do that. Whatever. But at its basic intent, it means set apart. Holiness, consecrated means set apart. And I think the marriage relationship really is a good example of
Mm.
this. If you take your marriage seriously, when you get married, you have taken a holy vow that I will be set apart to my spouse only from this day forward. And if I don't maintain that level of set apart separation, my marriage is not going to do well. I'm not going to have a healthy marriage. So I can understand the concept in the marriage relationship to say, okay, now here's the creator, the father, and his nature and his essence is holy. Whatever that it has, this is his nature, and it's pure, it's clean, it has power, it's beautiful, and he wants a relationship with me. And yet, and if I come to him in a Christian way and give my life to him and receive his gift to me, he gives me holiness.
Hmm.
He gives me something that I cannot generate on my own. So I have holiness, and as I grow in that, I can walk in a way that I can literally approach him better. His essence, his nature of purity, clean, glory, beauty, all the great things of which holiness, of which he is, and I can literally have the relationship now that I will have throughout all eternity. But it starts now. The abundant life starts now, and the holiness that he gives me that I can walk in is a key part of that. Then we're on a closer level playing field of how we can interact. I don't know. You've heard talked about marriage. People in marriage, a lot of times they marry somebody that's, for lack of a better way to say it, very similar to them, um, in likes and in interests and hobbies and whatnot. Well, this gets, if we're going to have a relationship with the Lord, it puts us on a better playing field that we can interact with one another.
Yeah.
And if you somebody that's living a holy life, if you look on it from the outside, it's not. I have no desire for people to look at me and say, "Oh man, he lives a holy life." That's just not a desire of mine at all. But because I have holiness with His power and His grace, people might look on and say, when I observe that person, they seem to be living a holy life. Well, great. This is just an outflow. You're seeing an outflow of it's from the inside out.
Yeah.
The Lord's holiness, it's from the inside out. It's not an outside in, it's an inside out process.
And you've observed over the years how that directly or indirectly impacts patients' health, their sense of well-being. I mean, we sit as clinicians and often we give advice about lifestyle change, lifestyle disciplines that will bring health. It's not all just a pill that will fix it. And we embrace this growing desire from our cultures to have more lifestyle medicine in place. We've been trying to preach this for years with no uptake. So this is great. Does this also apply to spiritual and emotional health? Do you ever find yourself giving spiritual or emotional lifestyle advice that will help their health when you perceive there's a relationship there?
Yes, especially if I perceive there's a relationship there, something that we can build on. If they have if they have a faith with the God of the Bible, absolutely, I do. Um, I, you always have to be careful. When I'm in this realm, if I've got a stethoscope around my neck, I'm a doctor, and
Yes.
so I need. That's why you came to me. If you want to go deeper with me in non-doctor things, there's better places to do that. But yes, I'll often joke. Uh, I don't know, something about the Holy Spirit coming to Bethel and being a youth pastor just really opened up a lot of fun aspects of my personality. And I love to go through yeah, you need to eat better, you need to get better sleep, you need to exercise more. And if you're a Christian, you need to read your Bible more, and you need to pray more. And I laugh because I'm going for that relational equity. Um, but yes, I do. I quit smoking, anymore. And now marijuana is legal in the state of Missouri. Um, and I'll say, if I take in the history, I'll say, "Do you smoke?" And they'll say, "No." I'll say, "Do you smoke anything?" And they'll say, "Well, I smoke weed and I vape." And I'm like, "Well, then you smoke." And then I'll in my if I have some relational equity, I'll reach out and shake their hand and I'll say, "Congratulations on quitting smoking today. I'm so proud of you for quitting smoking
Yes.
today." And we laugh.
Yeah.
Uh, but but yes, it's if it's appropriate, it's always situation and person dependent on what I'm going to say and how much I'm going to
Yeah.
say, because I'm
Yeah.
I'm not here to be something that they have not asked me to be.
You also have so many tidbits of wisdom in your book that have come over the years about health and lifestyle and the interplay between conventional medicine and lifestyle medicine and spiritual health. I know this is kind of hard to do, but could you pick your top favorite if you had a patient sitting in front of you who really needs wholeness in all aspects of them, and you can sense that there's need in spirit, soul, and body? What would be kind of your top things you would tell them would help their overall health, help them to be whole?
That is a tough question, because it rolls into all three of the different realms of it. Okay, it would depend upon the problem, the situation we were in. Um, most of the natural things that I recommend are things that have been recommended forever, for the most part. You need to get more sleep. You need to eat more fruits and vegetables. Eat a plant-based diet. We'll see how this whole carnivore thing turns out. I don't know. I'm kind of watching that. But those really honestly haven't changed a lot in the last 30 years. They changed a little bit. Um, as the other, if they have a faith, I'll just really encourage them. Really, get in church, get with your community, be faithful to that. Um, the the soul side of it has so many different avenues that it could be pursued. And if you need medication, if you need counseling, that's fine. But really, to me, it's more about community. It's more about um, the spirit is a relationship with God. You have a right relationship with God, then that's probably going to go pretty well. If you have a right relationship with people, that's probably going to impact your soul a lot
Mm,
more. The soul tends to be very relational, one-on-one relationships, and I think maybe an easy way to say that is issues such as bitterness, unforgiveness, resentment, relationship dysfunction will mess you up quickly physically. And
yeah, yeah,
we family doctors, especially the Midwest family doctors in our training, it was a little bit old school. Everything's stress. It's all stress. Every problem you walk in with is stress, and we'll laugh. But the reality is, so much of them have a stress component to it.
yeah,
So, I can say the word stress and many other words like anxiety, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the reality is it's life stress. And if the stress is coming from relationships, then let's deal with those. Let's try to find a way to deal with relationships. The
yeah.
precious woman years ago that had normal blood pressure, and then she comes in and she's stroke level. She's 220 over 140 overnight, literally. And over a process of time, we put her on 4 different blood pressure pills. I couldn't get her blood pressure down. And one day she comes in and her blood pressure is normal again. And I say, "Congratulations. What what was the secret sauce? What'd you do?" And she said, "I quit my job." I said, "Oh." And then it came out there was a relationship on the job, and she was spiking stroke level blood pressure.
Wow.
And so, I mean, hers was a simple fix. I got to get away from that person.
Yeah.
But to deal with one-on-one in relationships has a lot to do with the soul. And then, of course, having a right relationship with yourself, me time, exercise, take time off. It really, spirit, soul, body, holistic health is about relationships.
Wow.
It's really what it's about.
That's such a good summary that holistic health, as you're speaking of with the WH, it can be summarized in this way that you have whole relationship with God, you have whole relationship with others, with people, and you have whole relationship with yourself. And that will lead you into better and holistic health. This has been such a fascinating discussion, Dr. Clark. Thank you for your insights.
This has been fun. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. And thanks to all of you for being with us here with Dr. Clark. Reminder, his amazing book, Holy and Holistic Health. Get a copy. I know that you'll be really blessed and inspired by it. Thanks for being with us here. I'm Dr. Jennifer Kang, and this is the Restore Healthcare Project. Healthcare professionals, I'm so excited to be able to connect with you on issues regarding spiritual needs in healthcare. We want to partner together to see some of the ruined places of healthcare culture restored by hope. Follow us at restorehealthcareproject.org and like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and social media.